For this review, we're going to look at and remind ourselves how to write linear equations. And so the first thing we need to remember is slope-intercept form. This is on your formula chart. I want to show you this real quick. Slope-intercept form is up here at the top. Slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. I want to remind you that the slope formula is also on your formula chart and the formula for direct variation. Okay? So the slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. And let's remind ourselves what everything stands for. M represents the slope of the graph. B represents the y-intercept. Okay? And x and y represent any point on the graph. Now I also want to remind you about the y-intercept. Remember, the y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis, where the graph crosses the y-axis. And we know that this coordinate, the x value, is always 0. That's really important. X is always 0, and then the y value is going to be a number, another number. Could be 0, but usually it's not. It is sometimes. Okay, so that's what I want you to think about. So if we're going to write an equation in slope-intercept form, first we need to find the slope, which is our m. Then we need to find our y-intercept, which is our b. Okay, if we have a graph, okay, this is super easy. Look at our graph. I have points labeled for you, and even if they're not labeled, look right here. This is your y-intercept. This is where it's crossing the y-axis. Our y-intercept is -5. Okay, now we need to find our slope. So we could use our slope formula, or we could draw a right triangle and do the rise over the run. So it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. And so our slope is the rise, 4 over 3. It is a positive slope. Okay, so now I'm ready to write our equation. All we have to do is fill in the numbers for m and b. So the equation would be y equals 4/3 x. And I know it says plus, but because our y-intercept is negative, we're going to write -5. That is the equation of our line in slope-intercept form. Okay, now let's look at it from a table. A little bit trickier from a table. Okay, let's start by finding our slope. Now, I've got some messy numbers here. So I think I'm going to use this point and this point. You can use your slope formula, or you can find your pattern. To get from 3 to 2, we're subtracting 1. To get from 0 to 2, we are adding 2. So for my slope, the change in y over the change in x would be -1/2. Okay, now let's find our y-intercept. So remember, we talked about our y-intercept. The x value has to be 0. So that's the first thing I would want to look for in my table. And look, I've already circled it for us. Here's where x is 0. So the y-intercept is 3. So that means our equation is y equals -1/2 x plus 3. Okay, let's look at the next one. The first thing I do want you to notice is we don't have an x value of 0. So we're going to have to do a little bit more work to find our y-intercept. Let's start by finding our slope. To get from 11 to 15, I'm adding 4. To get from 1 to 2, I'm adding 1. So my slope is 4/1, or simply 4. Now, to find my y-intercept, we're actually going to work backwards. So we want to work to where x is 0. Well, we already are at x is 1. The pattern going down is to add 1. So if I go backwards, we subtract 1. And that would put me at x is 0. Yes? So same thing with the y's. The pattern is adding 4 as we work down the table. So if we go backwards, we would subtract 4. So what is 11 minus 4? It is 7. And so our y-intercept is 7. So our y-intercept is 7. So that means our equation is y equals 4x plus 7.